Who's got a hammer?
Give me a break.
I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat.
Oh no!
I'm sick of all these witches and warlocks.
Filter.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
They want to make you drink Starbucks every day from now until forever.
Out in the nation, Waldorf Nation. What's up, everybody? It's Thursday. Welcome to the show. Got a good one today. Actually, very heavy one. At least when it comes to the police shooting. Yes, we've got a police shooting story, and it is disastrous. We're gonna save that for later. We're going to start off with something a little bit more sort of ridiculous, sort of fun. We're going to have, of course, a discussion about Elon Musk and Twitter. So you have probably seen the news. We have Marjorie Taylor Greene fighting with Max Boot. Oh, this is fun. This is a let them fight moment. We're going to have fun. Very interesting. We have, of course, MAGA rioter in court. Interesting defense, as usual. Yes, that's still going on. And, of course, the aforementioned horrible story. So we'll get to that. Of course, we'll show you the video and we'll break it down. All right, and I'll give you basically everything that I know about it right now. So, that said, I saw a couple of you talking about how windy it is. We've got wind. Some massive wind outside, the greatest wind, the biggest wind, tremendous wind from the standpoint of air. Yeah, so it's pretty windy. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it in the background, but man, is that loud. It is loud. And so hopefully it doesn't throw my brain off the tracks. We'll see. We'll see if there's a train collision. We'll see. The windmills. It's the windmills. I told you, windmills. Nothing good ever comes out of wind with the windmills. Well, we'd be making a lot of energy, Red. But the ring, the rear, they give you cancer. Great, I'm going to get cancer now. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Windmills do not give people cancer. Let's just, say that. All right, anyway. Let's a brain collision. True. The windiest air from the standpoint of air. Also true. I don't think it's that windy that it's going to blow my roof off, but it's still fairly windy. All right. Anyway, we're gonna talk about Twitter. So we've got a dumpster fire here. So let's get into that. Oh, before we do, please like and share the stream. As always, helps us out greatly. We could always use the additional sharing. So sharing is caring, everybody. You might be familiar with the old adage, if you can't beat 'em, join 'em. Well, in this case, Elon Musk had attempted to do that when it came to Twitter, but that didn't quite work out. So I guess the next step is when you can't beat 'em, try to buy 'em out. That's right, Silicon Valley tech bro Elon Musk has announced that he has made an offer to buy 100% ownership in Twitter. Instead of doing what others have done in creating their own social media platform, the wealthiest man in the world has decided, you know what, I'd rather buy Twitter than make my own. Because, of course, what are you going to do with all the billions that are burning a hole in his pocket? Look, Musk says that he will offer to pay $54.20 per share in cash. Now, you may say, oh, $50 a share. Oh, it doesn't seem like that much, right? Oh, the amount of shares that you have to buy 100% of a stake in Twitter would be valued at about $43 billion. So that's a lot of money. And of course, most people don't have that money. Elon Musk, one of the very few people who has that money. So now, according to Bloomberg, the potential deal that he announced in filing with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission on Thursday, after turning down a potential board seat at the company. In a letter to the board, Musk wrote this: I invested in Twitter as I believe in its potential to be the platform for free speech around the globe. And I believe free speech is a societal imperative for a functioning democracy. Yes. Well, look, we agree. I agree that you should not have the government come in and arrest you for saying things that the government generally doesn't like. That's free speech. That's literally what it is. And so, when it comes to free speech, I'm totally a believer in free speech. That said, right? He continued by saying, however, since making my investment and I realized the company will neither thrive nor serve the societal imperative in its current form, well, I might also actually agree with that too. Because it's a private company, the only way to really protect free speech with these platforms is to nationalize it and then have that run by the government that will then protect your free speech. Now, is that going to happen? No, that's not the direction that he's going to go into. Of course not. In fact, he said Twitter needs to be transformed as a private company. As a result, I am offering to buy 100% of Twitter for $54.20 per share in cash, a 54% premium over the day I began investing in Twitter and 38% premium over the day before my investment was publicly announced. My offer is the best and final offer, and if it is not accepted, I would need to reconsider my position as a shareholder. So he bought in probably what was it, $9 billion worth of stock in Twitter, and so he would then share that. Now, Oh, the final thing that he said too is that Twitter has extraordinary potential. I will unlock it. I have the key. Do you know what the key is? Shit posts. All sorts of shit posts. Okay, no, but seriously, I've got some thoughts on this. And so, first, number one, rich people seemed like they would rather spend billions of dollars on social media platforms than use that money to solve real problems. Do you know how much it would cost to prevent world hunger? Prevent world hunger for a year. Well, a lot less than it would be to buy Twitter. There's a couple of studies. One estimated that it would cost about $6.6 billion a year to prevent people across the world from going hungry. So now that was one suggestion levied at Elon Musk when he had talked about this. Now, the World Food Program plan would spend about $3.5 billion on food and then deliver it to those most in need. This includes the cost of shipping, storage, and transport by air, road, and river, and security escorts to safeguard food distribution in conflict-affected zones, like, I don't know, Yemen. The money could provide 1 meal per person per day for a year, keeping tens of millions of people from starvation. That's very, very basic, right? That's $6 billion. Now, a further $2 billion, I'm sorry, that's the 4 out of the 6. The further 2 could fund cash and voucher programs in places with functioning markets, allowing people to choose food they eat while supporting their local economies. Okay, that's good stuff. Now, other reports cite larger numbers, more food, and argue that in order to meet the UN Sustainable Development Goal of ending hunger by 2030, the amount of aid already given for food security and nutrition each year will need to double, and that the poorest countries will need to be able to invest more. How would they be able to do that if they were already poor countries? Well, I mean, that's an open question. But generally, they say that you would need to spend about $33 billion worldwide in order to solve hunger. Now, obviously, that involves just more than buying and handing out food. The research team, for example, studied some climate resilient crops, which will be needed as well, that can survive drought, which is a key technology that farmers are facing increasing threats from extreme weather thanks to climate change. You also have funding for farmers to support farmers. Obviously, yes, we need farmers. I don't know if this gets talked about, but agriculture is actually incredibly important. Agriculture is kind of the root of civilization. If we didn't have agriculture, we would all essentially be hunters and gatherers. So we need agriculture, we need farmers, and so we need programs to be able to support farmers. And I'm not talking the big factory farmers, the big corporate farmers, that are making these ag gag laws. No, what we need is to also to support the small farmer. The person with 20 acres or whatever, Smaller farmers, not big corporate farmers, is what I'm trying to say. And so, yes, we need farms, we need farmers, we need to support them. We need to make sure that they have land available and also sustainable stuff to make sure that we can continue to use the land. Sustainable pesticides that don't ruin the environment, that can still control that kind of thing, and make sure that, infestations don't destroy food supplies or crops, things like that. There's a whole lot of stuff on this one. So yes, agriculture, and as some of you point out, local agriculture, very, very important. And so, community agriculture, to make sure that you sustain the community with local farmers markets, and to make good food. And by the way, yeah, that's the other effect of that is you make good food, real food, vegetables, easily accessible to people. So that's good stuff. So that's important as well. And then, of course, look, you have to deal with the fact that there's a lot of food wastage in this country as well. Just in the United States alone, we waste tons and tons of food on a massive, massive scale. in this country that, could have gone to people who needed it, but instead was thrown away because of capitalism, right? Because of the entire thought of, I'd rather put this food in a trash can that I didn't sell than allow someone to eat for free. So that's a real great winning attitude there, okay? And again, there's a lot of different things, a lot of different facets into making these things not only sustainable, healthy, and accessible for everyone in order to alleviate world hunger. Now, the irony is, a lot of this was already explained to Elon Musk when he had pledged to sell some of his shares in Tesla to fund stuff on world hunger, which of course didn't happen. I thought billionaires were supposed to be so kind and benevolent and godly that they would jump at the chance to do some good with that money. Well, apparently they didn't, obviously. Hunger still exists. And again, $33 billion is less than what Elon Musk was offering to buy Twitter. That amount of money, understand that it could do so much good in this world for people who are struggling. It would help so many families, so many people, solve a lot of societal ills. But instead, Elon Musk just wants to massage his ego and likely make it harder for people like Ken Klippenstein to dunk on him. Let's be honest. I think that's a big part of it. Those dunks, epic. But look, if he actually does buy Twitter, which is, again, I don't think that's actually going to happen. But if it did, two things would happen. Very likely, at least. And now we're into the realm of speculation. One, he will ban people on Twitter for making fun of him. And number two, Nazis will flood the site. Now, why do I say that? It's because, am I saying Elon Musk is a Nazi? No, of course not. I don't think Elon Musk is a Nazi. But here's the reason that I say that then. Every time a social media company goes, quote unquote, free speech, it serves as an invitation of some of the worst kind of people to crawl out of the woodwork. Now, when that happens, it scares off regular people. Regular people don't want to be around Nazis. And so, in order to prevent the exodus of people leaving Twitter because of the Nazi problem that they invite, the company would then have to go back and do a TOS. Now, they'd have to do a TOS against the Nazis. Now, that, of course, would defeat the whole purpose of free speech, right? Because, well, now the whole thing that brought in the Nazis, i.e. your free speech, that made everybody leave, well, now you undid that in the hopes that other people would come back to now the Nazi free site, which is now essentially empty. And so, I mean, the reason that and again, my logic goes, as an example, I look at all the right-wing sites that have failed. Okay, all these right-wing media sites that have failed to grow beyond just a very small group of people. It's because nobody wants to be in a place filled with Nazis. Nobody wants to talk to them. Why? Because they're horrible people. And so, that said, I think it's worth mentioning that Twitter is bad. Twitter is a dumpster fire. They have very unequal enforcement of policies of their TOS. You still have threats and harassment that is quite rampant, especially against women, LGBTQIA plus folks. And I only see that getting worse if Musk happens to be successful. So it just makes me ask, wait, why doesn't Elon Musk then, if he believes in this, why doesn't he make his own social media site? He could do that. It's not like he can't afford it, right? Why doesn't he just, compete in the marketplace of ideas? And to that, I don't think Elon Musk knows how to do that. It is much easier to take over something already established, to buy it, than it is to create something from scratch. That's why you have a lot of this media consolidation to begin with. why you have a few companies, because mergers and acquisitions and all these different shareholders and people getting rich from these mergers and things like that. And so that's what you have. And so I'm sorry, but you're going to be more successful if you go that route than making something like True Social or Parler or Gab or Rumble, right? And so that's why he's not going to go in that direction, because ultimately it's going to fail, and that's going to be incredibly embarrassing. And if there's one thing I know that billionaires can't stand, it's getting embarrassed. Tom would appreciate having friends again. Good old Facebook Tom. Or I'm sorry, not Facebook, MySpace Tom. What am I thinking? I have brain. I can't brain. I have the dumb. All right. Anyway, moving on. Let's go to the next story. Related. There's nothing more fun than watching two awful people fight each other. That's what happened when Elon Musk offered to buy Twitter for $43 billion. Now, people are quite concerned, of course, with this, with the possibility of this attempt at a takeover. I don't think it's going to succeed, but if it does, that would end up making Twitter likely worse. And Twitter's already sucks. Now, one of the things Musk wants to do is take the company private and then, of course, reinstate former President Donald Trump and people who were banned previously and turn it into what he considers to be a free speech outlet. Now, when we talk about free speech, that's great. Who could be against free speech, if you ask? I'm in favor of free speech. Well, free speech in theory is pretty awesome. But there happens to be a little bit more nuance when you get into what is considered to be acceptable speech, right? Now, when you, for example, tell people to attack a certain person, dox them, go after them, intimidate them, things like that, no, then that stops being free speech, right? When you start to harass them. Now, you could argue, but I'm just using my words. And it's their fault that they're getting all offended and, you know, and that those words are making them feel bad. But here's the thing. There's also spreading false things about people. There's defamation. There's libel. There's slander. Is that free speech? Is that considered to be free speech? So you have to be really careful what you mean by free speech and what you want when you create a platform or when you start to enforce rules of a platform. Okay? In fact, do you want a platform filled with white nationalists spreading hateful lies about black people, or religious misogynists, or just any misogynist saying hateful things about women and how they're the weaker sex? Oh, right. We already have all that. In fact, we have that on Twitter. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene. So, look, my point is, I think there's fine to have some ground rules, right? And to have some consequences for people who break that. For example, again, hate speech, incitement, that can lead to actual real world damage, people being hurt in the real world and not just online. Because, like, okay, you know, it's easy to be like, oh, you know, fuck your feelings, right? Oh, you're snowflake, you're getting hurt by words, blah, 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 right? Well, now we know, of course, that sustained harassment can lead people to harm themselves, to do self-harm and, content warning, right? Commit suicide. So that's a big problem here with, you know, things like bullying, okay? And so, you know, in a way that I think some of these platforms might have a responsibility to be able to cut down on that kind of harassment or do something about that harassment. And that includes limiting, people like basically deplatforming people who engage in that kind of negative behavior. And again, I think that's fine. Now, ironically, I share this position with, I think, a lot of people, but somebody that I've disagreed with publicly in the past. And that's conservative pundit Max Boot. Weird. Now let me read his tweet here. He said, I am frightened by the impact on society and politics if Elon Musk acquires Twitter. He seems to believe that on social media, anything goes. For democracy to survive, we need more content moderation, not less. Now, look, what he means by content moderation and to what degree, I mean, again, it's a tweet. It's not super specific. But getting back to ground rules, right? Again, I think it's fine that if a company has TOS, meaning terms of service, they want to enforce, great. All I ask is that they enforce it equally, right? Now, I kind of liken it to rules at a movie theater, right? Or at a restaurant. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater without getting kicked out. I think that makes total sense. If your speech is going to do harm to people, then you might want to think before you say it, or maybe not say it because you're going to catch some consequences. And that's fine. Again, you are free to do those things, but you're not free from those consequences. You say certain things, you're going to get kicked out of the establishment. But that free speech does protect you against the government coming in and arresting you. So now, that said, speaking of people who don't think, Marjorie Taylor Greene. So here's what she said for Boot. And she, quote, tweeted him and responded with this. Kill freedom of speech to save democracy? Say you're a communist, just say it. You're actually scared of people freely discussing ideas and saying words. You're terrified of the impact on politics when truth isn't censored. I am offended by your weakness. Well, I am offended that you are offended. What do you think about that, Marjorie? Okay, but seriously though, does she not understand how free speech works? I don't think she does. There's this conflation here in the minds of certain people, okay? Look, the First Amendment, again, as I mentioned, guarantees that you will not be imprisoned for saying things against the government, for having a redress of your grievances. It also protects the press. It also protects the right to peaceably assemble for protest. Now, if I am not mistaken, Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to not be a huge fan of the press or for free speech. In fact, last year, a Georgia TV reporter said that she was threatened with arrest and removed from a town hall meeting with Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Her crime, asking a question. In fact, Meredith Aldis, a reporter with the Chattanooga, Tennessee station WRCB, tweeted that she attended a meeting in Dalton, Georgia on Wednesday and was told that she was not allowed to ask questions to Greene or anyone else in the building. Now, again, this happened last year, so. But I want to show you a video here of her asking a question anyway and then getting escorted out by police. Take a look.
I'm talking to my constituents. We're not having a press. This isn't a press conference.
Thank you, Mark.
Gun control. President Biden's website lays out a pretty extreme and liberal position. And for the left to tell us that we are suffering in this country is completely wrong. Actually, it's these third world countries that are socialist or communist countries where people are truly suffering.
I just love the awkward silence where she was just kind of going through her notes after shutting this person down, of which afterwards a staffer for Marjorie Taylor Greene came over, found that woman, and then the police literally escorted her out of that event. What happened to free speech, Marjorie? I mean, she's just asking questions. Are you afraid of questions? Are you scared of people freely saying words? Are you terrified of people asking questions? I am offended by your weakness, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I am offended. For people like her, understand that it's free speech for me, but not for thee. And basically to them, it basically means saying whatever they want without any sort of consequences. And consequences could be just openly disagreeing with them, or tweeting a picture of pigs shitting on their own balls, for example, on Twitter. They hate that. Please don't ever do that. Or, you know, in the case of private social media companies, you know, upholding their terms of service, which, by the way, you agree to. Look, let me say, it is the thing that you scroll past whenever you sign up for a Twitter account, right? If you remember that, or a social media account, you kind of go through this long thing, you don't read it, you scroll through it and say, I accept. Yeah, that's their terms of service. Now, that's their rules. And so if they found that you have violated those rules, they can kick you off the platform. Now, can some rules be stupid and arbitrary? Yeah, I've talked about some of those. You know, Twitch, Twitter, all these platforms have some of those rules. True Social also have some of those rules. For example, where you couldn't make fun of Devin Nunes or the cow. And so, again, stupid rules, right? But there are some rules that do make sense for at least a company standpoint, and that's like banning Nazis, because nobody wants to hear Nazi shit. Or, of course, taking action when people make violent threats. Now, the fact that Max Boot understands this, and Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't, it really shows the disconnect in the conservative movement, right? Because generally, most people will agree with Max and myself and disagree with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, again, I don't agree with much, you know, with either of them much politically. But at least with Max, he seems to be making a little bit more sense than Marjorie Taylor Greene. And so at the end of the day, yes, I don't have a problem with companies enforcing their rules of conduct. I think it's a sensible position for them to be able to take with their own platform. If we do actually want something, and I've made this, you know, I've made this argument before. I've made this point before. We should have a we should have a platform that is a public utility that we can all use. I wouldn't be, you know, I wouldn't have a problem with that, regulated by the government. And so have that, and then have these other private options that want to have their own rules or whatever. There's nothing wrong with having both of those things. Whether that's going to happen, I don't know. Unlikely. Kind of like the sale of Twitter to Elon Musk, but still, it is important to talk about the ramifications of what would actually happen if that were to take place. And so I don't think it will. I'm actually glad it won't, because actually we need more media. We need more social media options and less billionaires taking over. Okay. Moving on. The sister of a January 6th defendant is asking the court to go easy on her brother, exercise a little bit of leniency. According to CBS News reporter Scott MacFarlane, the man's sister said that he did not know what he was doing. Oh no. And therefore, the court should take it easy on him. Oh, well, you know, ignorance of the law, right? Ignorance of a crime. I had no idea that I was doing crime, officer. Okay, well, I'm sure that's going to make all the difference. Yes. Nonetheless, I'm going to give you her statement there. She said, I'm asking the court to take into account that on this day, he came to what he thought was just a rally. As stupid as this sounds, he did not knowingly know he was committing a crime. I did not knowingly know. Yeah, he didn't knowingly know. So you know, just let him go. He didn't, I mean, he did something wrong, but he didn't know he did something wrong. So, you know, just ignorance, right? That's not how that works. That's not how that works. So now, she also said this. He was even being waved in by police officers. So now that's something I've talked about that on the show. I originally believed that's what had actually happened. I showed you the video of it. Now, later on, of course, we realized that, well, no, that's not quite what happened. There's a little bit more nuance on that, a little bit more detail on this. And it actually even comes from the reporter who was literally on the ground. But we'll get to that. But first, yes, I believed it because we know that generally police are, well, they tend to be more lenient on white protesters, on white right-wingers. And so we also know, and I've showed you this as well, where there were cops that took selfies with rioters. Now, that said, not all the police were friendly towards the crowd. Obviously, the officer that was forced to shoot Ashley Babbitt, not exactly friendly, right, to her. Now, you had officers that were also beaten by the crowd. Brian Sicknick was one of them. And according to one of the journalists that was on the ground, Marcus Diapola, who filmed the video of police retreating from a barricade, said this, quote, "They definitely didn't just open the barriers. The pro-Trump rioters made a fist like they were going to punch the cops, which is why I started recording. Then police backed off the barricades." Now, I don't know, maybe I'm going too far to say this, but if it had been black people, they wouldn't have backed off. I'm just putting that out there. But Diapola said this, quote, "They were completely outnumbered. There wouldn't have been any point in fighting." He estimated that the officers were outnumbered 100 to 1, with only about 30 officers spread out between these three entrances on that side of the Capitol, compared with thousands of protesters. About 8,000, actually. So their defense was, hey, look, it was the police's fault. They waved us in. They invited us in. They welcomed us. We didn't know it was wrong when we were welcomed in. Now it turns out to be, again, not true. Now, that does not mean that the police are innocent in this. No. For one, despite evidence, they did not consider the crowd a threat, even though they were warned days in advance that there was a very large potential for violence. They even had chat logs from right-wing sites saying, we're going to bring the guns. They were talking about doing violence, but no. They're right-wingers. Of course, they're never going to, no, they'd never do anything to us. We're police. They love police. Now, when it broke out, officers were instructed by their leaders to not use their most aggressive tactics, to hold off the mob or equipment. They were told to hold back, to engage with very soft hands, to my words. And again, they didn't receive backup from the National Guard for about 3 hours. Now, that said, she continues, did he get wrapped up in the moment? Yes, he did. But he did not vandalize anything or hurt anyone. Once he was in there, he said he thought better of it and left on his own. When he realized he was in the wrong, he took accountability for his actions. Do you understand what the word accountability means? You were trespassing. And so, trespassing, serious enough charge. Okay. Criminal trespassing, trying to disrupt an official proceeding. That's what a lot of these were, right? And as such, a lot of these charges basically lead to maybe a little bit of jail time, a week, couple weeks, or probation, right? Essentially. That would be accountability if you were to get that. But you can't claim that you didn't know the crime that you were doing was the crime. That's not how it works. You can't get out of the consequences for doing the crime because you claim that you didn't know that what you were doing was crime. Now, here's what's funny about this. So I want to liken this to the sheep defense. Let me explain what that means. McFarland notes the refrain from the January 6th defendant is to say that they were caught up in the moment, blindly following the crowd. Other quotes he observed include momentary lapses in good judgment and swept away moment. according to an attorney for defendant Verdon Nally of Georgia. Now, isn't this a bit ironic? These are the people who call everyone else a sheep for, you blindly followed the mainstream media that showed that Joe Biden won when he didn't actually win. No, it turns out those people were the sheep that were blindly swept up in their own mob and ended up, of course, doing crime. They were the mob, and they fell into what is considered or what is called mob mentality. That is defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary, by the way, as a large and disorderly crowd of people, especially one bent on riotous or destructive action. That sounds a lot like, that sounds a lot like the Capitol rioters right there. They were not tourists. They were not patriots. They were a mob doing mob shit. And as a result, they should accept the consequences of their actions. They did the crime. It's time they have some accountability for it. Okay. The first the Chewbacca defense, now the sheep defense. True. It was a picnic. I was just looking at the art. I remember that. I was defending the muffins. The muffins. From those other people. No, they weren't. They were shitting on the floor. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Maybe in America that's what we do as tourists. Maybe I don't know this, but maybe tourists, from America, when you go to other countries, it's customary for us to shit on the floor. I don't know. What are we, cats? I don't know. By the way, I love cats, but sometimes cat likes to shit outside the litter box. Needs to be held accountable. Anyway, I thought we were sheep for wearing the masks. Apparently. When they actually act like a real mob. It's funny. My cat doesn't poop on the floor. How's the Great Kitty? Great Kitty is rambunctious and as insecurely attached to me as ever. Like, seriously, he is very insecure without me around. Bit of a weirdo, he is. But other than that, I guess he's a good cat. All right. Moving on. Maybe I'll just do the story about, before I get into the cop, the execution by cop. Let's just do a random story that just popped up. Oh yeah, it's right off the cuff here. The Republicans decided to skip the debate. So let's add that. The Republican Party has decided to pull out of the presidential debates. Now, earlier today, the Republican National Committee, headed by Ronna McDaniel Romney, who dropped the Romney, by the way, they put out a statement earlier saying that we are dropping out of the presidential debates. So I want to show you the statement here. RNC unanimously votes to withdraw from commission on presidential debates. Today, Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel released a following statement on the RNC's unanimous vote to withdraw. Debates are an important part of the democratic process, and the RNC is committed to free and fair debates. The Commission on Presidential Debates is biased and has refused to enact simple and common sense reforms to help ensure fair debates, including hosting debates before voting begins. and selecting moderators who have never worked for candidates on the debate stage. Today, the RNC voted to withdraw from the biased CPD, and we're going to find newer, better debate platforms, blackjack and hookers, to ensure that the future nominees are not forced to go through the biased CPD in order to make their case, the American people. To which I say, snowflake. I mean, look, I don't know what it is, but I'm pretty sure they did not like being asked tough questions. Look, I remember watching the debates during the election. I agree that they were just a total crap show. You had people that were cutting off moderators all the time. Moderators sometimes asking some pretty stupid questions, understandably. Frustration with that. But like, at the same time, to claim that they are biased, obviously when a conservative claims bias, usually that means, how dare you ask me an uncomfortable question? That's generally what happens. They're mad that they can't go and just completely lie and bullshit people and then get called out for it. They want to be able to just lie and BS without being called out. And so, the debate structure would not allow them to do that. Now, here's the thing, though. There's a little bit of a, I mean, there could be a silver lining, right? Maybe this would force Democrats as well to find other more fair debate platforms as well. Here's what I'm thinking. Independent media. There is a vast audience on independent media that would love to host these debates, that would actually have even more fair questions, not just for, fair questions and tough questions for Republicans, but also fair and tough questions to Democrats as well. See, I do believe in fairness, and I do believe in asking tough questions for everyone. Now, of course, the Republicans will never agree to that because, bias are going to ask me questions about reality in my actual platform, which is to give all the money to the rich. And the Democrats will also be like, I don't really want to answer that question because guess what? We also want to give all the money to the rich. And so that's very unlikely to happen. But I'm just saying that this is something that I would like to see happen. It would be a wonderful thing to see presidential debates not just happen on mainstream corporate news, but actual, not just progressive, but also you could have hosted on conservative. As long as you're asking tough questions on both sides and fair question, then I don't care who does it. And I'm sure there's probably somebody out there who would be a fair moderator, even if you're a right winger. And so that's fair. I'd like to see something like that happen. But as you can see right now, the RNC, they're such sad little snowflakes that they don't want to go and have any sort of tough questions aimed at them. And so this is the result of that. Cry harder, snowflake. Sad baby. Okay. Now we'll go to the disastrous news. A police officer in Grand Rapids, Michigan, was caught on camera executing a black man during a traffic stop. In fact, police in Grand Rapids, Michigan, released that video footage yesterday afternoon. That's on Wednesday, showing that video. Now, look, there's 4 different sets of video. One of them is cell phone video. We're going to show you that. But there's also body cam footage, and I don't know if that's been released yet. And I think that's really relevant, and I'll get to that, of course. Now, first, details. Patrick Lyoya, 26-year-old, father of two, was fatally shot in the back of the head by a police officer during a traffic stop on April 4th. The video shows the officer, who is so far unnamed, pinning Lyoya to the ground face down and shooting him in the back of the head. I kid you not. Now, this was after a struggle in which the unarmed Lyoya struggled before attempting to run away, deflecting a taser from being used on him, and of course there was wrestling on the ground. Again, you'll see all this in the video. But first, Grand Rapids Police Chief Eric Winstrom announced the footage released to the public during a press conference. And again, here is that cell phone footage. Be warned, this is very, very difficult to watch. Content warning, someone gets shot in this video fatally. So, avert your eyes, those who are sensitive to this. Now here's the video.
Now you say it's good, but I mean, yo, what's up, man?
Stop! Stop resisting!
Now you good, you're not resisting nothing, bro. Okay, why you gotta do all that, bro? You good, man.
That was the sound of a taser discharging. Let's call the taser! Let's call the taser!
No, like, he's good, like, you can talk to him, bro.
Let's call the taser! Drop the taser! Drop the taser! Get back!
Okay, a couple things to note here. So obviously that's incredibly difficult to watch. But a few things to note. The officer had a body cam, but for some reason, when that shooting happened, just seconds before that happened, it mysteriously deactivated. What? Oh, okay. Oh, hold on. How does that happen? How does that happen? What happened here? Now, Lyoya's family said that they had reviewed the footage of the shooting. They also dispute that the police had any sort of reason for engaging with him, who say they had pulled him over to the curb because his car was making noise. Now, think about that. I want to ask, what kind of noise? What kind of noise would justify that? Was it loud? I mean, we got people in this country. I got people that I know around here where I live that will make their cars or trucks incredibly loud on purpose. And of course, they're the ones that are flying MAGA flags and Confederate flags, but they make their cars on loud on purpose. Or what was it, a clunking noise? Like a safety hazard? Even so. Why? Okay, what was the point of pulling this person over? No, I know what it was. He was just giving out citations to poor people to make money. I mean, that's what they do, honestly. Police officers, look, their number one job is to protect property and to collect money from poor people with tickets. Now, in this case, there was a non-matching plate. Okay, so we pulled him over for a non-matching plate. Car could have been stolen. All right, that is still not an excuse to shoot someone in the back of the head. It doesn't warrant a death sentence. And I'm not saying you should fight with police, but I'm also saying that police shouldn't shoot people in the back of the head who happen to move around. And look, when you look at the description here of what happened from the footage of the body camera, and again, you saw some of that, but there was some of the stuff that's on the body camera footage that isn't there on the cell phone footage. In fact, the body cam footage shows the officer arriving at the scene as Lyoya stands outside the car. The officer tells him to stay in the car. He responds by asking, "What did I do?" "Dude, I am stopping you." Okay, but that's not an answer to that question. Lyoya asks the officer what he's being stopped for. Without giving a reason, the officer asks Lyoya for his license. "Do you have a driver's license? Do you speak English?" Now, it's important to note that Lyoya is an immigrant from the Congo. Now, Lyoya answers yes. The officer tells him that his license plate is not registered to the car. He asks again for his license. He opens the car door, steps back, and says his driver's license is right there. So, look, you think about that, it's like, okay, that's kind of a weird thing to do. Why would you just, open the door for the police officer and say, "It's in there"? Well, then you think about it for a second. Do you really want to reach into your pocket as a black man in order to get out your license, right? Well, if you reach into your pocket, well, they could say you're going for a weapon. Okay, so if it's there, if it's on the seat, you just say, "Here, there it is, just go get that, and I'm not going to move my hands, I'm not going to touch anything." Okay, so I'm assuming, that's, and again, I'm making an assumption here, I don't know the facts. And so I'm being very clear about that, okay? Now, according to the description, Lyoya then closes the door, takes a few steps away. The officer then moves behind him and grabs his shoulders, which he says, nope, stop, put your hands behind your back. As the officer grabs him, there's a brief struggle before Lyoya pulls away from the officer, turns, and tries to run down the street. The officer tackles Lyoya to the ground in front of the house, across from where the stop was. The officer struggles with him, grabs the man's head, slams him into the grass twice, yelling, "Stop," while the officer is on top of him. "Okay, damn," says Lyoya. The officer pulls out a taser, and again, you saw what happened afterwards. So it would be real easy for me, especially somebody who looks like me, to say, "Well, just comply, man." I mean, you hear that all the time, right? It's like, why don't you just comply then? Why don't you just listen and just do what the officer tells you, even if it's for a bullshit reason? All you have to do is just give up your rights, give up your liberties, and just submit to the authority. It's real easy for somebody to sit there and do that, okay? But here's the thing, right? When you're in a situation where you feel that you're threatened, and I'm not talking about the police officer, because they always use that excuse. I feel threatened. What about the people they're arresting? Do they ever feel threatened when they're being attacked by police officers? Or are they supposed to go, "Oh, no, I'm in good hands, don't worry. Police officers are not going to kill me. They're not going to hurt me. They're not going to shoot me. They're not supposed to"? Well, then, explain why there are so many police shootings and killings. Understand that if you know that, if you're aware of that, as many of the black community are, well, they're going to get afraid. You don't know what's running through their head. People run when they're afraid. They fight back when they're afraid for their lives. They resist when they're afraid. That's why this whole thing about, aggressive policing and take them down and subdue them at any cost immediately with maximum force, probably the wrong way to go, especially when they don't know or even have a reason as to why they're being apprehended. Again, I don't think somebody who had a mismatched license plate should be arrested like that. Maybe try to figure things out, do your job as a policeman. But again, fight or flight, right? And I think that's what this guy was dealing with. Fight or flight. Now, again, that does not warrant a police officer shooting him. Now, here's the other thing, too. At the time of the gunshot, you saw this. He was fairly subdued. Again, he's on top of the guy. He's face down. He's fairly subdued, right? At that point, call for backup, cuff him, hold him there. But instead, you saw what happened. He grabbed his gun and he shot him in the back of the head. And you saw that's why they didn't even attempt to administer any aid. Well, a shot to the back of the head, you know that's going to be fatal. And now, getting back to the body cam, right? So, how did that body cam turn off? Did he turn it off himself? If that's, and I'm not saying that's what happened, but if that is what happened, if he turned off the body cam, then that is murder. Because if you're not in control of a situation and you're struggling with the guy and you're in danger of your life, so that's why you have to pull your gun to shoot, well, then you're not going to take the time to go, oh, let me turn up my body cam. Click. Okay. No, back to it. No, that's not what's going to happen. So, and again, I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if the cam malfunctioned or I don't know if he shut it off. I don't know what happened. And so I think that's really important. And again, I can speculate about what happened. They struggled. How could he turn it off? And there were bystanders recording. Yeah, and so again, that's why there needs to be investigation. In fact, as of Wednesday, state police investigators had not yet interviewed the officer that was involved, who police say had been with the department since 2015. Grand Rapids police policy requires an officer involved in a fatal shooting encounter to give their account to investigators within 72 hours of the incident. And so time's running out on this one. The next couple of days. And so hopefully we're going to start getting some answers and the family's going to start getting some answers. But as far as I'm concerned right now, with the facts that I know, this looks like an execution. And that's horrible. Okay. News of the day. Okay. All right, everybody. That's all I got. That's all I got. Man. All right. Well, let's read some super chats before we go. See you guys weigh in here. Let's see. And if you haven't already, please like and share the stream. If you haven't already. Let's bring this up. And Dango Bango says no farmer, no wine, beer, mead, sake, etc. Yeah, no, absolutely. Farmers are important. Gabby Madison says I can't watch anymore. My hubby grew up in Grand Rapids. I was there 2 times. When is enough? Yeah, Grand Rapids. I'm also familiar with the area. Well, let's just say that. I am familiar with with that area. Yes. Let's see. Freaking Gay Frog says, yes, he grabbed the cop's taser, the non-lethal weapon, according to police. How can that justify a lethal response? Yeah, and as far as I can tell, as far as I know from the report, trying to grab the taser to stop him from being shot with the taser. That, to me, seems like a natural reaction if you're going to get shot by something. And so, I mean, that's, for me, that kind of makes sense. Like, yeah, if you could deflect the taser if you think you're going to be shot from a taser, and you're in that fight or flight mentality where you don't really think about things, yeah. Again, that's why you're supposed to have level-headed police that are actually able to think through that. But I realize that's a very high bar, apparently, for our police forces here in this country. So, all right. Addison Steele, thank you so much for the kind $20. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Is this somebody's birthday? Am I missing a birthday? Less lethal. Yeah, it's supposed to be less lethal. But not always, as I've done stories before of people being tased. Let's see. What is it? Chris Greene's birthday? Is that what it is? Oh, well, happy birthday, Chris Greene. Hey, all right. How old are you today? I'm just waiting for that that answer. Or is it like not good to ask? I don't know. I don't mind asking, and I don't mind sharing how old I am, because it's just a number. 71. Damn. Good stuff. Good going. Yeah. Good run. Keep it up. Happy birthday. I'm super awkward. I'm sorry. All right. Okay. Well, there we go. Well, hopefully you have a good happy birthday, and everybody else, hopefully you have a good day. I know it kind of tough after that last story. And again, I'll give you guys updates when I know them. Again, I'm always pretty skeptical when it comes to police actually being held accountable, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, again, we didn't think that the officer who killed George Floyd was going to get some justice, or I should say, get justice done to him. But that did happen. So maybe things are starting to change a little bit, one by one. So we'll see what happens. All right, everybody. Thank you. Love you all. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, everybody. You have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Big, massive dumps.
Wet ass P-word.
I don't like to put chemicals in the water. They turn the friggin' frogs gay.
Sexual anarchy. Get in the long tube with a bunch of bees.
Disappointed!
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.